All right, we are right at 7 o'clock, so I'll call our meeting to order. Karen, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Husnick.
Here.
Councilmember Munson.
Here.
Councilmember Byström. Councilmember Valento. Here. And Mayor Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible.
Council, you have an agenda before you this evening. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And agenda's approved. Next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is residents' time to speak to address council on any topic of their choosing. Do we have any participants for open forum? And if you're here tonight to speak in particular to the variance appeal, we will provide opportunity to speak then if you want to wait rather than open forum. Perfect. And is there anybody online for open forum? All right, with that, we'll close open forum and move on to the consent agenda. Council, before you this evening, we have consent agenda items 6A through 6Q, and I will entertain either a motion or changes.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to approve consent agenda items A and B, and then D through Q, pulling C since I was on vacation that time.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item 6C. Was that the one we pulled?
Correct. The motion to approve consent agenda items 6C. All those in favor, actually, is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose and abstain?
Abstain.
All right. Moving on to our regular agenda, our first item this evening is 7089 North Shore Trail Variance Decision Appeal. And Donovan, I think you're going to start us on this. I do know we have the applicant here this evening. We'll have Donovan speak first, and then we'll provide an opportunity for the applicant to address council, and then we'll bring it back to council for any questions that we may have. Donovan, you want to get started?
Certainly. I'd like to present the variance decision appeal for 7089 North Shore Trail, a variance related to a subdivision of land. I'd like to present the area and give a background to the application for mayor and members of council. Karen, can I get video, please? Okay, so the application relates to property at 7089 North Shore Trail. That's on the north side of First Lake. You'll notice that in this case, with many properties that surround the lake, North Shore Trail bisects the property. In this case, so there's the Shoreland house that David and Ann Kniffen, present here, own, and there's the application is to create a lot on the north side, as has been done a couple other places. Recently, a house was constructed here next door from such a lot where, actually, I'm sorry, it's over here, which was a conforming lot, which the underlying zoning district, single family, requires a lot of 25,000 square feet and 100 foot in width to be a conforming lot. The proposed lot is 6,500 square feet and 91 feet in width. So it's about a quarter of the required size. And the reason for creating the lot is to provide a driveway to a 5-acre lot in the city of Wyoming, north of the municipal boundary, that's owned by Caleb Smith, who is the applicant, or co-applicant, I guess, in this. application. You know, the city itself, when we first talked to Mr. Smith, we looked at potentially what, you know, would the city approve of a driveway access permit for this lot? In this case, you know, when the engineer reviewed it, you know, looking at the curve of North Shore Trail, location, you know, we didn't see any huge barriers to that. But in this case, the Kniffens did not want to sell to the easement for the driveway. They wanted to, you know, actually sell the property, and Caleb Smith also, as an owner, wanted to make sure he owned the actual lot that gave him access to you know, to a public road. Because the parcel in north of here, the 5-acre parcel, is going to be landlocked. And if we look at the adjoining properties, you can see where along the line, and this has not happened within the past several years, and I'm not sure how these lots became, how they were created, but there's several driveways that access homes that are not within the city of Forest Lake. And there are other places in the city where this is the case. And, you know, speaking with Chief Newman and Chief Peterson, this Forest Lake Fire Department is the primary responder when there are fire calls of that nature, emergency response for the fire department in these kind of lots. But however, if there's a police call, and then the actual Forest Lake PD goes to assist. They're not the primary responders, but those calls, you know, do involve, you know, City of Forest Lake emergency personnel. The Plan Commission, when they reviewed this, they discussed basically, you know, the basic standards, and in the end, they had a unanimous vote that to deny the application because it did not meet city standards. And the city, you know, the Plan Commission chair, Gerard, just said he didn't see he didn't remember when the city had done that before. There's one time where we did it in the last 7 years where it was a matter of a lot that was 3 feet shy of the required width, the property over by what was formerly Southwest Junior High. Besides that, you know, the city has not wavered on these minimum sizes, and this is one where it was proposed to be about one quarter of the required area. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions regarding this. Also, I should mention also that our city attorney, Amanda, did provide a memo that outlines what the action is for city council to consider. And in your packets, there is a resolution to deny if you so choose. But basically what the memo lays out is the council is tasked with hearing the appeal of the Plan Commission decision to deny the variance. The council is required to expeditiously render its decision with written findings based on the criteria listed above that support its decision. And so, and this is also coming to the end of the 120-day review. So council should really make a decision tonight that potentially, if there needs to be a backup resolution for that second meeting in August, that would, you know, that's why I recommend making a decision tonight, just to give council that time for potentially another resolution if needed to affirm a decision. And so tonight, the legal criteria for denying, the council must determine whether the Plan Commission correctly applied the legal criteria for denying a variance and may affirm the Plan Commission's decision to deny a variance or overturn the Plan Commission's decision to deny the variance. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Donovan. Before we hear from the applicant, Donovan, are any questions for Donovan at this point?
Yeah, now Donovan, the reason for this variance application is just strictly for a driveway to go through there? I mean, they're not gonna be building on it.
No, yeah, the applicant is not, Mr. Smith, who did arrive, is not proposing to build, on the property. And the lot is in order to enable them to have, ownership of the parcel, of the driveway parcel. Something that I do note in the actual minor subdivision staff memo is that with these several parcels, there are within Washington County, they're part of our city's tax base. The average annual payment in property tax is about $26. And so, this is a case where I don't believe it's in the city's interest to facilitate this. I mean, there still might be an easement that still might create the driveway, but I don't believe it meets the variance criteria because it is a self-created situation.
So the big question is whether we have a variance for the driveway or an easement. Is that correct?
Well, for the decision before the council tonight is to whether to affirm or deny the variance denial.
Yeah.
And basically, it's just related to the creation of the lot. I don't think it's proposed at all, and it could be a part of a variance condition that no construction be allowed upon there.
I'm just trying to understand exactly what the situation is, because here we have a lot that's landlocked. How does that ever get opened up?
Through, I don't know, I kind of consider it Wyoming's problem, really. They created the lot, and there are several properties that also have gained access through a common driveway. And, it's really not, I don't think it's the city's problem, and it would be the city's expense if this driveway was put there.
That's all I have for at the moment. Mara, thank you.
Thank you. Donovan, there was a comment made as part of the request for the appeal was that that the Planning Commission made their decision without a full understanding of what was being asked for, or what the request was. Has there been additional information that's come in from the applicant since the Planning Commission made their decision? Are there, I guess I'm asking, is there been new facts that have been provided or clarification provided from the applicant since the Planning Commission made their decision?
No, I've not received anything directly from the applicant. There was an inquiry that was part of email to the zoning administrator of Wyoming regarding some of their subdivision rules. And besides, I did encourage the applicant to send something if he wanted something included in the packet, and I did not receive anything.
Thank you.
Donovan,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Bain. Was the city of Wyoming approached about the common driveway? Just curious. Do you know?
I don't believe so. Mr. Smith has described how he has talked to neighbors, and he does have information on how difficult it would be. I did not research that.
And just understanding options that are available for this particular parcel. I understand that it's not the applicant's wish or either party, the buyer or the seller's wish to have a driveway easement, but is there anything from the city's perspective that would prevent not a sale of the parcel, but rather an easement be granted? I saw notes in the packet that city engineer indicated that a driveway would be allowed. And so is there a path for an easement on this parcel, or has that been excluded for some reason? I know it's not
There
what's
is a path.
applied for, but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand what the alternatives are.
Yeah, certainly, and that's where I think it's when you get into the reasons for the Planning Commission to deny a variance within the zoning code. One of them is there a reasonable use still without the variance? and the reasonable use exists, like many other parcels, is just simply open space, is a wooded area. Also, there's nothing in the zoning code to prevent an easement being there.
Okay,
And, you know, as part of initial conversation was that, you know, that it met the criteria for a driveway permit.
Right, okay,
You know, you have to be a legal driveway, you know, paved and maybe a culvert or not.
right.
But there are other pathways, you know, for getting a driveway. It's just that it did not meet the variance criteria, in my opinion. And I think the planning commission agreed with that, as well as it was self-created because it was a desire from both the applicant and the owner to do the fee simple, you know, transfer of land,
Right.
a land sale rather than simply a sale of an easement, an access easement.
Understood, okay.
Mayor Bain, I did attend that planning commission meeting, and if I recall, Donovan, there was some concern of the commission members about precedents as well, too, with the zoning code.
Correct.
Understood. I would like to provide an opportunity for either party of the, either the selling party or the purchasing party, provide information.
Good evening.
Welcome. Good evening.
I'm David Niffen, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. Caleb Smith is also kind of a co-presenter. I didn't know the AV situation, so I printed out some packets. if
We
that's
love
okay.
printed, we love paper. Thank you.
So some of this Mr. Hart had already covered, but I'll just go through it pretty briefly on the points that he had made, and then dive in a little bit deeper on some of the others. So we have close to a 5-acre parcel that's behind my little parcel of land there on the other side of North Shore. That small parcel, of course, is unique because of the lot lines and the road placement. I didn't create this parcel of land, it just came along with it. The purpose here is to, as you had mentioned, sell that small parcel that I have really no use for whatsoever to Mr. Smith for access only, no building. You can't build on this lot anyway because of the building code, and so it would be for access only. And I'd be surprised if it couldn't be approved in that matter, that it would be for access only. And you tie that to the 4.97 acres behind it, and you have a 5+ acre lot. And it's for one house only, and that's Mr. Smith's house that he plans on putting in. You kind of see the overall picture on the second page there of what the total lot would look like. I think one of the key points, and I think a question came up, is that according to the Wyoming administrator, that these two lots would have to be tied together to make actually a conforming lot, because it'd be 5+ acres. And as you mentioned, the city engineer had already granted, or would say, access to a driveway would already be approved. On the third page, there's access lots that have already been approved that are substandard lot size on that other side of North Shore Trail North already. So from what I can see, there's 3 lots that are substandard lot sizes that have been approved for access to the houses that are behind there in Wyoming. The blue lot is the one that I have right now in question. I really have no reasonable use of this parcel. I can't build on it, I can't farm on it, I can't do anything with it. And crossing North Shore Trail, I don't know if you've been out there, but it's a little dangerous. So, it's a problem for me. I didn't create this. This lot, or this parcel, was created by where North Shore Trail was put in and the lot lines that was drawn up beforehand. The planning commission still controls any use of this lot. So a building permit can be denied whatever might come up other than for access only can't be denied by the building commission or planning commission later on. We already talked about the reasons for the planning commission for denying. One other thing I want to talk about on, or other information is, we talked about an easement, and what makes me uncomfortable about an easement is all the liability issues that go with an easement. So it's still my land. Something happens on my land, I'm still held responsible for it. There are tax issues. Donovan said $26, but I don't know where he came up with that, because I'm paying a lot more, and this is a portion of it. There's maintenance issues that come in with the easement, who's maintaining that, and also any future disputes. I like Mr. Smith now, but who knows what happens in 3 years from now. And you still have all the other issues that were brought up to the planning commission as far as fire, police, whatever, with an easement, as you would with selling the piece of property. So I won't go into detail on the summary, but basically the city, it makes no sense not to approve this as an easement-only lot. And I strongly urge you to do so. Mr. Smith, do you have anything that you want to say that I missed?
You did a great job. I'll answer it. Is there any other questions that you guys would ask at all?
Thank you.
A little taller. How's it going? Thanks for hearing this, guys. I think you had asked a question about, or one of you, about access to the other driveway and looking at, like, could we feasibly get there? The downfall to that is there's actually a little area of wetland that we'd have to cut through, and it really denies, so in order to go around it, we'd either be going through an easement through, it would be south, I don't know, the parcel, it would be to the east, it'd be Mike's land, and I just know him as the neighbor there in the White House, the small little land there. We'd have to go through him or right around his back, and a septic would end up being in the way, or we'd go through the other side up to the north, and we'd be basically going right through that person's, like, right up by their garage where they pull in. So it wouldn't be like, oh, we share a driveway and we go off. We'd go right by their front door in order to continue over to the property. So that kind of hinders that one. This just seemed like the most clear-cut path, and going down every other, like I think I said in the narrative, we went through a lot of different, well, could we do this? What about this options and all that type of stuff. And when meeting with Fred Wick over at Wyoming, he was the one that brought this up with the developers agreement, saying, look, we could tie these all together through a deed. It would all be done through the county. So whenever the land were to sell, it would show that they're tied together, that there's no way they could be pulled apart without city approval or anything like that. So there would be, you know, a legal way to pull them together. And then giving up all developmental rights. So not even putting restrictions, we'd be voluntarily giving up those rights of building, you know, anything on it, and saying all we want is a driveway. So it'd be only solely a driveway access. So just from my clarification of looking over everything, I kind of, throughout the last month, like you had said, what was the reason there? I think the confusion was part of the vote. They didn't want to do it was a non-conforming lot, but it's for a non-conforming use, where I think during the confusion, they kept saying, well, but you're gonna build on it. And I didn't think the planning commission fully understood, because there is no real good, clear picture of the land behind it. So they keep thinking we're trying to build there. So when they said, well, we can't do this, you're gonna try to build one house back here. And I kept going, no, but behind it. And I don't think we fully understood through that Zoom meeting that they kept saying, because the reason for the vote or the denial was it's a non-conforming lot, and we think it should be a conforming lot for conforming use. But we're not using it for conforming use. So approving a non-conforming lot for non-conforming use seems pretty logical. And if we go the other route with the easement, ultimately everything's the exact same. The only difference is I'm not buying the land from them. I mean, there's a driveway, because if we go with an easement, what is the difference? There's one house behind it, there's an access road that goes through, it's a driveway, and it's all the exact same. So everything ultimately ends up being the exact same, except for we just look at, you know, Ann and Dave and say, too bad for you, we're just gonna put an easement across your land and not buy that part of the land from them. And being that they're willing sellers and we're willing buyers, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer. And so at the end of the day, this made the most logical sense, was to approach it from this angle. And I thought you know, doing the easement, it just didn't seem to make as much sense. I know there was the biggest liability issue to the city of Forest Lake that Donovan has discussed was that someday someone could come up and say, hey, you created this lot, so therefore we get to build on it. But I think we negate that with the developer's agreement. That's why Wyoming's pushing that. There's no way we could build on the land behind it unless we had a developer's agreement that shows we own that land. So that would be the best way to go about it, because it would give the frontage, it would make everybody, it basically makes it kumbaya at that point by going this route. So, any other questions about it?
Any, I think some additional questions may come up, so
Yep.
don't go far.
Yeah, I'll be right
Any-
there.
Any other immediate questions at this point? I think you addressed, so I just want to be clear, one of the comments made was that the planning commission didn't fully understand, and so you've kind of made the point that you think that there was an incorrect perception that you were going to be developing on the Forest Lake portion of the land and.
Yep.
And clear, okay, are there other kind of pertinent points you want to make sure that I just want to make sure we're understanding the full picture and.
Well, I
any
mean, there
other-
was also some confusion. Donovan had brought up that if we approved this, that I could somehow bring a road in and develop houses all behind it, which that's why I think Frederick had written an email saying there's no way we would develop back there. That's completely impossible. So I think by adding in some convoluted information and stuff, it really clouded the whole what is trying to be done. And the diagrams even on this, like you guys have in front of you without Dave's diagram, it's hard to see the whole picture. You can definitely from his packet see a better picture of what's being done and what's around it. And so I think it's just unclear during the planning commission and being in a Zoom call, and you were in it, I think we got interrupted or lost service at one point, so I don't know exactly who was said and what. So it just kind of became, I don't think everybody fully understood or was on the same page. And so that was kind of why. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, that's helpful.
Yep.
Other questions at this point? If, I have a kind of, I don't know if this is a technical question, but if this were not over the county line, if we did not have the, and the municipal line, would there be an option to, if this scenario were somewhere else in the city, to just do a lot line adjustment between the two lots and we adjust the lot line? And is the reason this question of selling the parcel, is that important because we can't do a lot line adjustment because that would adjust the municipal line?
Yeah, there's, lot line adjustments are only for common lots between two parcels.
Right?
In this case, the common lot is the municipal line.
And so you
and the
can't, that's not
city
an
doesn't
option
have
on
any
the table.
jurisdiction over Wyoming.
Okay,
You can annex it maybe,
okay.
I'm joking.
I have a question, just a follow-up. I can't remember, refresh my memory if the development agreement was talked about at the planning commission meeting? Because that was a difficult one on Zoom, I will say.
Yeah, I would like to defer that to Amanda, who can answer for
Okay.
regarding development agreements.
Well, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure if it was or it wasn't, but I can tell you that that's not what we would recommend, is we recommend putting conditions in the variance itself. And the reason is that the development agreement has a sunset date. Under Minnesota statute, they expire after 40 years versus a variance, it travels with the land, so it will stay unless they do something to revoke it, essentially. And so the idea of combining the two parcels via a document does work, but that needs to be a condition that is spelled out in the variance. Specifically, it would be a condition that the two parcels need to maintain common ownership. And then likely, in addition, you would want to do some sort of a variance condition that requires that the property is only to be used for access. So there isn't any buildable rights. And just to clarify that point, there isn't buildable rights right now because the property is too small. So he's not actually having to give up anything. He doesn't have anything to give up. It really is more of clarifying that he doesn't have the right to build on that. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
This one is just complicated.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the planning commission decision, in the legal, it makes sense. But then when you think of the common sense, it doesn't make sense.
My concern is, you're gonna hate this answer. So we've got a lot of, I think, properties within the city that have easements and shared driveways. I think just the nature of the way we've developed, how our parcels are laid out, I can think of all sorts of properties around the lake that have shared driveways. And my concern on granting this variance is that we then are inundated with all of these requests of nobody really likes a shared driveway, so one party's gonna sell to the other, do something that is going to create these small parcels that is now the new fix. And so my concern is not so much related to this particular, which might make sense of just let them punch a driveway through. It's more of the precedent that it sets of what is that minimum lot size for whatever use. And I think we potentially, in granting this, open up a can of worms of small little parcels requests, because again, nobody likes like going down the easement path. Is, I don't think anyone really appreciates that for all of the reasons you articulate well. But I can understand why it's the required path. And in granting the variance, one of the standards we have to meet is there an option? And we've made a lot of residents go down that option before, and I'm just not seeing what's different here. That is substantial enough to say we should grant the variance. That's just one opinion. Happy to hear other thoughts.
Yeah, I disagree, I'm sorry. The problem with, with any kind of easement thing, I've been there, done that. 10 years down the road, there's gonna be an argument on who's maintaining it.
Of course.
Absolutely. And then who's paying the taxes and so forth and so on. This one goes on and on and on. And I think that we can make sure that this lot is never going to be anything more than a driveway access. That's just my opinion. Looks like there's plenty of criteria to use for that particular thing. And unfortunately, I disagree with the planning commission on this one because I think it does make sense. And there's other driveways right there that have proven that it works. There's nothing on North Shore Trail that's good as far as access. I don't care if you're making a left turn or a right turn, because they zoom around there, it's something terrible. And that would be an issue that the owner would have to deal with. That's all there is to it. This whole thing to me makes sense rather than, making sure that that lot has never been built on ever for any reason. It can be put in some kind of legal thing, but right in item number 6 is granting of the variance will not allow a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning code. That pretty well spells it out, to me. So that's just my opinion, and so we disagree, that's all. Simple as that.
Other thoughts or questions on this one?
Well, I've said mine already. This is a real difficult one. I respect the planning commission's decisions around things like this because they're the experts. But when I look at something like, I have an easement that butts up to Wyoming, so I understand the whole easement. That's not easy, that's a pain. I don't know, I'm torn on this one.
I'm gonna go to the language, and it'll take me a second to find it.
Your Honor, if you go to page 2 of my memo, that outlines the 6 criteria that you guys have to talk through for the variance.
That's what I was looking at.
If the circumstances were different, and if this were not, if the lot line were not the municipal line, is this a situation where we would typically allow for a lot line adjustment? Or do we have enough facts to know whether that would be granted? And I keep going back to that question because I'm kind of circling on, are there other options available to the applicant? And in this case, because of the position of the property, that's not an option on the table, but that's just because it's the municipal line and we don't change the municipal line. And so that leads me down a path that's closer to allowing for a variance, but I guess I'm looking for some staff opinion on if this were in a different section, would it be a good candidate for a lot line adjustment?
Yeah, I mean, as stated earlier, it would be of the size and it would still be non-conforming as far as the, width of the lot, width of the public frontage. And it would, I mean, I often deal with these where if it's becoming more conforming, I tend, to want to support those. I do ask the city attorney on these because the lot line adjustment rules say you must create 2 conforming lots. That's the stated, purpose of those. And sometimes we have denied them when that you do not denied at a staff level, just not accepted, not put it through, through council with the lot line adjustment agreement. If it does not create 2 conforming lots, then we still would not have, a conforming lot here because of that lot width, the North Shore Trail frontage.
But that's a condition also of the municipal line, because without the municipal line, you could create 2 conforming lots. It's the fact that it's the municipal line that prevents us from doing that. Is that right?
Well, I mean, that's the primary reason, but I'm saying that even, part of part of a legal lot is having public frontage and a specific width of public frontage, at the 30-foot building setback, so it's, this still has 91 feet, not 100, at that building setback line, for the width. I mean, there's also options to do easements through 2 other adjoining properties. I mean, what I have up now shows there's a neighbor to the west that also has a North Shore Trail frontage, as well as to the east. And also, in 2008, the previous owner of the 7089 North Shore Trail property did try to do this. He tried to create the lot, and at the time, I talked to him recently, and he said that something related to the development agreement didn't allow it to happen. And also, the seller in Wyoming had some family issues, so the sale just didn't go through. But I couldn't understand exactly what that was. I mean, he's not a lawyer, so that was some difficulty. But this was tried before, and this property, the Wyoming property, according to Mr. Weck from City of Wyoming, was on the market for some 15 years. They were looking for somebody to who would be amenable on the Forest Lake side to provide that access to city asphalt.
Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Please.
On page 2, the criteria, the 1 through 6, that is what we need to consider.
Yes.
Just for purposes of discussion and just thinking out loud here, because dead silence while we think about it is awkward. Part of just what I'm struggling with is, criteria 1, there's special circumstances or highly unique conditions affecting the property such that the strict applications of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of reasonable use of the land. And what's being deprived is the reasonable use of the land that's in Wyoming. It's the circumstance where the parcel that, in a perfect world, that would be buildable is split between the two municipalities is just, to me, a struggle. And what I'm struggling with is whether that's enough of a unique circumstance that I'm comfortable granting a variance in a circumstance where otherwise we have just pretty clear guidance that this is a non-conforming lot size, and we've got a strong history of kind of sticking to that.
To me, we're doing nothing more than allowing a driveway. That's basically what it amounts to. And like I said, I don't like the easement thing at all. And, because like I said, I've been involved with that kind of thing, and he would have 2 legal descriptions and 2 tax statements and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, if one is okay, then both situations should be okay. And I think there could be some wording there that lot can't be divided up in any way, or it can't be, you know, it certainly says right in there, you can't be building on it or anything like that, so
And
that's my argument.
give you some clarification. So what is the Forest Lake parcel B, the Forest Lake side? What is the dimensions of that parcel? Is it really, is it 12 by 48?
No, I believe that is.
I'm sorry, that's the driveway. What's the dimensions of that parcel?
91.24 at the top, and then at the
It's-
bottom,
Yeah, there would be
91.65 at the bottom.
some right-of-way dedication with that, you know, if approved. And I believe that lot depth is around,
Looks like it
I think
averages
it's
like
to the-
50
that's
feet.
onto the judicial marks.
An
I
average
think
about
about
50 feet.
71. The 48 refers to the northwest corner to the found JLM, Judicial Landmark. So I believe it's about 71 on that western side.
Okay, so you're measuring to the center of the.
I'm sorry, to the longer side, on the east side, yeah. Approximately, if it was a rectangle.
Any further questions, discussions, points of clarification?
I'll make a comment.
Yes, please.
I agree with Sam on this point, and I think if we clearly look at the map here, this has been an issue and probably will be in the future, so I would prefer to see a zoning amendment to try to fix this problem.
Yeah, the biggest issue I see is that I don't ever see that lot ever being fixed in any way.
Right.
You know, so what do we do with it? You know, and it is non-conforming, but it'd be non-conforming to build on. All we're doing is asking to put a driveway in there. That's my argument.
I feel like we've, in the past, approved variances that just maybe shouldn't have been, that have set a precedence. But at what point, I guess my question is do we stop and we actually follow the zoning codes?
Yeah, I mean, there's, on Plan Commission's agenda on Wednesday night, there's a septic variance.
Yeah.
It's for a lot that's about an acre and a half in size, where the current minimum, you know, lot size is 5 acres. And there's really almost no other place to put it besides what they have, and it's a zero setback for a septic field. So it's those kind of things that I deal with on a daily basis that I think of what will be my legacy with the city, you know, that people look back and look in the future, look back and say, how did they do this? And this is a situation where there's a, you know, additional driveway that's being added to North Shore Trail, which we can agree that there are a lot of driveways, already probably maybe too many, or just traffic conditions aren't really safe. if there was any sort of variance condition and it was broken, then the city would have to file civil suit against it. It's not a zoning code enforcement issue. It would actually have to go straight to the courts to resolve it. And I think of that as any unknown things around setting a precedent, plus the fact is there are other options besides granting this variance for the applicant. This property was valued at $23,000, the 5-acre parcel in Wyoming. And so obviously the county for years has just seen it as open space. They haven't valued it as a house lot. They've accepted that. And the owner, purchased it with that, knowing that as well. I mean, the previous owner, as well as Mr. Smith. Because we had discussions around this access before he purchased the property.
Please, yeah, can you approach the podium so we've got you on audio?
But part of purchasing the property was I was given the easement was going to be an easily acceptable thing, so I would have access without a problem. But going down this route was just because it got convoluted with the wholesale versus buy, the liability with Wyoming, everything. So it got snowballed into something different. But I never bought the property with the premise of it was just open space and only going to stay as open space. When I bought the property, I have an email that says, no problem, go ahead and purchase the property. We just need a driveway application. Ryan had already said, preliminary looked over it and didn't see any issues with it. Again, granted, it wasn't a slam dunk, I have it in the bag, but I was told to go ahead and purchase. So do we need to pull up the email? I mean, you're shaking your head. Do you want to
Caleb,
see it in writing?
I said you would need a variance if you were going to do this for a sale.
Yeah, to buy it, the buy side of it, but the access of an easement, which you've said is the reason why denial is that you are, according to staff, the reason of denial is, on the pamphlet, is that you're giving me there's another option, which is an easement. So you're saying that that's an option, therefore I can have that, correct? Because if you're saying I can't have an
easement.
But if you're saying I can't have an easement, then I don't have any other options. Therefore, this is a unique situation in which I need access, so therefore I would love to get a variance. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't understand.
So-
We have not a position to grant easements.
Please direct comments to council.
Sorry.
But you do have an option there. I want to make sure I understand. You do have an option for an easement. It is just not your preferred path, correct?
According to what I understand, correct.
Okay.
That there's an easement, I could have an easement instead, which from my understanding would still have to be approved by them, not by me. So, and I can't
Understood.
force an easement because I'm under 5 acres. Because I think Minnesota statute would say that it's 5 acres that I would have to have in order for the city to approve and enforce an easement.
That's something you've quoted as part of the Cartway petition. I don't know about that.
Amanda, do you have perspective to share on the 5 acres for the easement? Can you clarify?
Yes, council, that is correct. So under a Minnesota statute, I don't have the number in front of me, but it does require the minimum for a cartway access, which is essentially like an access easement or like a driveway easement, is a minimum of 5 acres. And I believe the applicant is at 4.97. So technically they are underneath that, so they can't force it. So in an easement situation, we wouldn't be involved at all, right? That's a private party thing. So the private parties would be creating that agreement. That's not something the city would be involved in.
But so because of the 5 acre minimum, are they prohibited from the private parties still have the option
Yes.
to, between the two parties, have an
Absolutely. They
easement
can
agreement.
contract however they want to contract for some sort of easement. If it's 5 acres or more, they don't have a choice.
Understood.
And then
Thank you.
they have to cooperate.
Thank you.
But there would still be a permitting issue for the driveway through the city of Forest Lake, correct?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, so would there be any hangups for them along the way if they went that route, or if we went that route?
I would defer to staff, but my understanding is that that was approved that pathway was approved, that they could have a driveway easement, or a driveway permit,
See,
excuse
I'm
me.
not trying, we're trying to make a decision on one way or the other, but in the meantime, we don't want to muddy the water either for the applicant, you know?
Yes,
So-
right. Totally understood.
Any other comments, questions? So I'll take the lead on this one. So I motion that we affirm the planning commission's decision to deny the variance. And I'll provide some rationale here. So first I'll make the motion, and then as part of discussion, I'll make my rationale. So my motion is to affirm the planning commission's decision to deny the variance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. I understand there's some unique circumstances with this property and parcel. However, there are a lot of unique circumstances with properties and parcels, and creating legal lots to help to achieve that when there is an option on the table to have an easement, I think is just a really challenging precedent for us to set. And I'm not comfortable where we sit today, understanding the ramifications of what that precedent might be. And for that reason, I'm uncomfortable granting the variance. We have those minimum lot sizes for a reason. I would be open to considering granting the variance if there just were no other options on the table. And in this instance, the current property owner has already indicated he's got no use for this land. I understand you need to work together on how that easement and, joint use of that land is going to, how you're going to function over the years. But given it's remote, it's distance from the existing use of the property, comments been made, I don't have any need for it. I think that that's a workable agreement, and we have other parcels around the city where there is joint shared driveways in much more challenging circumstances where our residents work together and just make it work. And so I do think that there is a path for a successful project here that doesn't require us to move away from our minimum lot size and what I think could be just a really challenging precedent. Other discussion, points of discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second. And Karen, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Husnick,
No.
Councilmember Munson,
Aye.
Councilmember Valento,
No.
and Mayor Bain.
Aye. We are tied at 2-2. And
Good.
in a 2-2,
Motion
some
fails.
clarification, motion fails. Okay,
Good reason to have 5 people, right?
correct.
Unfortunately. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until the next regular meeting.
I'm sorry, Council, you guys are going to hump up against the 60-day
The
clock,
time-
now the
okay,
120
timeline.
clock.
Okay,
We have to
All
make a
right,
decision
all right.
tonight.
okay. Sorry. Because of the timeline.
So talk a little bit further about what you would do if we were to table it. Sort of just having a fifth body.
I think it would be an
Additional
opportunity,
information, is there
I think it would be an opportunity just to kind of discuss some things with staff and because I think we're in a situation where we're making something really difficult when it really doesn't need to be. Now, I understand your side of this, Mara, don't get me wrong, but here we have an opportunity where the new owner would be totally responsible for that parcel rather than just partially responsible. And whenever you have an easement, you really got to have a tight agreement on who's doing what. And we face a situation like that. I've repeated myself a dozen times on it. And so that's the only thing. And I mean, there's nothing else that's ever going to happen with that parcel, ever. And I think something could be written in there that it can't ever be divided anyway or sold off in any portion of it or whatever the case would be. That would be strictly for that driveway, which would have to meet all the criteria for the city of Forest Lake, whatever the widths and lengths and pavement or whatever the case would be. And I just don't like the idea that the parcel would have basically 2 owners. What it amounts to. And I think, you know, what, I respect the planning commission. I think they work hard on this stuff. I just think that they got this one a little wrong. That's all. My opinion.
Mayor Bain, I have a question. I think I know the answer to this, but there is no path for this to go back to the planning commission because they've denied, correct?
Well, you could remand in a situation where you had time. The issue is because we're bumping up against the 120-day clock, we have to make a decision. No decision is a decision, it's an approval. And so the time that it would go back, let's say you wanted to remand it to planning commission to reevaluate using maybe different criteria or whatever, that could happen in another situation, just time-wise you can't on this one.
No decision is a decision. And so if we were to somehow ask the planning commission to reconsider or take additional action, what you're saying is they don't have time to make a decision, and in doing so, we're essentially granting the variance.
Yes, under the 1599, if you don't make a final
Right.
decision, they have an automatic approval. And
Yep.
in this case where we would want at a minimum,
Yep.
some restrictions in that variance, that would probably not be the best path forward.
Understood. Not trying to throw anybody under the bus. Life is busy and things are challenging, so just trying to understand fact pattern. Why is it that we are so close to the 120-day? Like, so this was originally heard in Planning Commission in June. What prompted it getting put on tonight's agenda? Was it the applicant's motion? Was it staff? Like, what prompted it tonight, and why not 2 weeks ago? I'm just again, just trying to understand the circumstance of timing.
Certainly.
Good question.
Yeah, Mr. Smith, after the initial planning commission dial requested time, he said to do more research. And so I looked at what the 60-day rule said, and then agree with him that we would bring it forth in the first planning commission meeting in August, in order to be able to have this decision time that would comply with that 60-day rule.
You said first council meeting in August. You said planning commission. Did you mean first council meeting in August?
I'm sorry, yes, first council meeting in
First
August.
council
Yes,
meeting in
thank
August.
you.
And I will say that while there was some additional explanation provided to council, there wasn't an abundance of facts that were additionally presented and I understand there were some technical, maybe communication challenges with that Zoom meeting, but I don't feel like in that gap, we've been inundated with additional information. I feel like the 100 and I feel like we should be bound as a city to kind of turn that decision because we've heard all of the information. So tonight, because the motion failed, help me on next steps. So does this mean that we've got no action and it's approved by default because we didn't? We've got a 2-2 vote, clock's running out. Does council need to, what happens if council takes no further action tonight?
So if council takes no further action, my understanding is that the planning commission decision would stand.
Because we did not take action to affirmatively overturn it. Okay.
However, they would have a position to argue that that wasn't the final determination because they appealed it. And so all the determination within the 1599 rule, you have to get to your final, right? And so there is an argument that they don't have final, because you didn't final tonight. So that could potentially be a issue.
I don't either.
Not trying to, I want to make this public. I'm not trying to fight. I think we just have two
We're
different
mutually not
opinions.
liking this
Yeah,
current
right,
situation.
exactly. It would really be nice if we had a third,
Yes.
vote, one or the
Correct.
other. And
I'm trying to find a bridge the gap. Like what,
well, I'm trying to get this thing down to one owner on the
Time
lot.
runs out
And,
on
and
September 7th.
I think the restriction that we could look at there is, there's going to be a driveway there, one way or the other.
right?
that we can say this is for driveway only, it has to meet all the criteria of the city, we'd have to put all those things in there. But there's 6 points right here that would help with that too. I think we're trying to help somebody, develop his little lot in the back there, and I don't see any issue with that myself, but, because if I was in his shoes, I'd be doing the same thing, no question about it. Therefore, I would,
Madam Mayor, just for a point of information, we do, the time clock runs out, I believe, on September 7th, was it? We are scheduling a special meeting on the 30th for budget.
Oh,
If you want to continue it to that date, but you'd still have to, the decision clock, you'd still have to make a decision by that date. So you have an opportunity to try to better understand where you want to go, if that's just an option, unless you want to do it tonight.
we can put that on the agenda for that night then?
We have a budget meeting scheduled for the 30th.
Yep.
We were planning on doing a meeting, whether it was a workshop or special. We can change it to a special meeting, and you then can put this on the agenda for that.
technically, just full transparency, we could also put it on the agenda for the 23rd.
Yes, you could.
However, we know we are missing at least one council member on the
Correct.
23rd. So that's the challenge
would-
with the 23rd.
That's my concern.
Yes.
It really is.
Yep.
If there was,
Yep.
if it was a 3-2 vote, I'd feel comfortable. with
Yeah,
that.
and I have not heard if anybody going to not be here for the 30th.
The
so.
30th, right.
And that would be kind of the deadline, we could have it on the agenda.
Well, yeah, because you run into, the next Monday's Memorial Day, you'd have to really you're really tight there. You've got about a week left, I believe is the case.
I'd feel very comfortable doing that myself, Mario. That's not if that's,
Giving this one some time is, I would rather have time to revisit this and have an opportunity to at least come to a full vote. I hate a tie vote. Like, I don't love 3-2 votes either, but I really just don't like a tie vote.
Mayor Bain, can I just ask a point of clarification? So on August 30th, if we were to meet, is there an opportunity, so this gives the applicant some time to do more, find more, if there is?
If the applicant has further information, yes.
Okay.
If the council wants to direct staff to look at different options, if there are any.
Is there a route to have a conversation with the planning commission, or is that not?
I don't think
Recommended.
I don't think that's enough.
Yeah, I don't think I think you're here.
Our
You
decision?
need to be here.
So
I'd just love to see a 5-person council.
I agree.
We could break this thing and
I agree.
And,
get it
and,
done with, you
and
know.
sending back to the plan commission, being that it was unanimous vote.
Right, it's not worth.
So I think you're running out of time, and also I think that you really need to make the decision at
And
this
then
point.
maybe along the way, between now and the 30th, maybe one of us will change our mind on this thing too.
So before we entertain a motion to table, because then we're gonna stop discussion at that point, maybe just some points of question to staff, if anyone has any points of question to staff on how additional information that might be helpful on the 30th. Does anyone have anything additional facts that would be helpful on the to bring back on the 30th? I'm just trying to think of, is there anything we want staff to specifically work on between now and then? I do have my ongoing concern is around the precedent that this sets. And so I could use some, if we were to grant this variance, what does that mean as far as similar situations? And I think in particular, just right around the lake, because I think that that's where we just happen to have a lot of properties close together and shared driveways and lots of variances. Are there other circumstances that we're aware of where there are shared driveways that that there's concern that we open up the can of worms? And I'm not sure how staff looks into that further, but if there is some information that is known to staff, that's something I would welcome as part of that conversation. One other just quick point, Sam, to your point around this is clean, and I agree it can be clean, but the other part that I like about having it be an easement is it's then an agreement between two parties. And sometimes that works well and sometimes it doesn't, but it's not the city's boundary. It's-
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with
It
that.
does keep it, the city's out of it. It's an agreement between two parties and it follows a dispute resolution path if needed based on that. But if I'm going to flip on to the other side, I'm going to wear your side of the argument, which is like, well, we can avoid it. We have a mechanism here. If we grant the variance and you don't have the agreement or you don't have the potential for dispute at all. And
Yeah, either way, they have to comply with the city regulations for driveways,
correct.
period. I mean, whether there's an agreement or whatever, so that's just where I'm at with it.
And
And-
sorry to
Oh,
interrupt.
no, I just respect everybody's opinion. I just have my own, that's all. So,
And I just think an easement is not guaranteed because the parties need to come to an agreement, and that could fall through. Whereas a variance, if we give that to them, that's a for sure action.
With that, I motion we table this agenda item until the August 30th council meeting.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to table. We don't discuss a motion to table. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and our motion is tabled until August 30th. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Oh, next agenda item.
Well, we don't need you. I don't think so.
Donovan?
There's the following agenda item as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That was just gonna be an agenda question. I had nothing more than that, so 7A and B would be pushed down, so.
To your question, if you're not here, are there other parties to the agreement that are able to be here? Just my observation, seems like you're on the same page if others are able to be here. Unfortunately, that's the only night we're able to accommodate a
You-
special
You can
session,
also,
so.
pardon me, you can also zoom in.
And
we
you
do have
have a
access.
remote option. Okay,
He's gonna be in the boonies somewhere, I bet.
thank you for being here. We are going to, though, move on to the related agenda item. As soon as I get my agenda back before me.
Tune back in.
Which is consideration of resolution 08092102, 7089 North Shore Trail minor subdivision.
Your Honor, you may want to table this as well.
Is it worth, I'll ask council's opinion, is it worth some discussion? In my opinion, of limited value, depending on the outcome of the prior discussion. But I'm happy to have some discussion or hear information from staff if anyone is looking for that at this time. With that, I would motion that we table agenda item 7B, resolution 08092102, which is the 7089 North Shore Trail minor subdivision.
Second.
Motion and a second to table. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, and motion, item is tabled until August 30th. All right. Next item, item 7C, resolution 08092103, donations from the senior center members for bakery goods. Patrick, are you walking us
Just,
through this?
I will
Thank you.
quickly do that. Yes, the seniors get bakery goods and they sell them to their members. And this is just a lump sum of the donations that have been, I forget what the period of time is, but you'll see this very often, but they just take the money and use it for programming and things like that. So it's just a form, like other donations, the senior center will use it for whatever purpose they see fit.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 0809-21-03 with gratitude.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carries. Next item, resolution 08092104, donation from Charles Chalberg for $200 to the Forest Lake Police Department. Chief Peterson?
Yep, that's exactly what I have for you, is a resolution to accept $200 that longtime resident Charles Chalberg donated to the Forest Lake Police Department. I want to publicly thank Mr. Chalberg for his donation, and staff recommendation is for the city council to accept the donation with gratitude.
Is there a motion? I move we approve Resolution 08092104, accepting donation from Charles Chalberg to the Forest Lake Police Department with gratitude.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. That ends our regular agenda item this evening. We do have a couple of discussion topics tonight that will be workshop only. Council will not be making any decisions this evening. Anything that we talk about will be brought forward to a future meeting for vote, if vote is required. And first item is water tower painting. Dave?
Mayor and council, we were here in middle of May to talk about the water towers. They're both getting rehabbed in 22 and 23, which gives us a chance to repaint the logos on the tower. After that meeting, I think we got 3 out of the 4 sides figured out. We're down to the last side that is painted, currently painted Rangers right now over the, facing towards the high school. Coming out of that meeting, I was tasked with talking with the school to try to figure out the history of why the Rangers was on there, and also suggesting to put it out for a survey. The survey, when I got out of the workshop, I didn't feel I had enough direction on that. I didn't want it to become a, we like the school, we don't like the school, or we have 5,000 new ideas of now what should be on the water tower. So that's why at that point, didn't do a survey. We can move ahead and do a survey, but I would like some direction on a parameter of, do we want to ask, do you want to see this or this, or do you want to, if that makes any sense, just more of it dialed in so we don't get out of control there. The second task was talking or trying to find some history. I talked with Dr. Massey at the school district. He was involved when it first got painted. He said he was actually approached by, I think it was the mayor at the time, to ask if they wanted to get the logo painted on there. From his memory, they supplied him with a logo and the color scheme, and then nothing financially, just provided him with that logo and that, and the city put that up at that point in time. I saw it as a change order for that tower. So at some point in time, I was probably gonna say Forest Lake, and they just change ordered to that, so. But after that research and just explaining out the survey, I kind of think there's 4 options left. One is put out a survey with directed parameters, repaint that south tower with the city logo, so front and back with the city logo, repaint the tower with the Ranger logo, just an updated Ranger logo. Or the 4th one, a new option or an alternative option is having the Forest Lake logo on the top and then Rangers going down the stem that would face the school. So with that, I'm just looking for some discussion. If council feels strongly one way or the other, we can move along with plans and specs. If we want more information, we can definitely come back at a later date as well.
Mayor Bain?
Please.
Oh, were you going to jump in?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. My opinion is I don't think it's necessary for a survey. I feel like we have had a good collaboration with the school district, so I think their logo should be on there as well. There's a lot of pride in this community for their school. Putting both logos, I don't know if that's just too much, just too busy, or just from an aesthetic look. I mean, I guess I really don't care either way, but I just think that we should keep the Ranger, in my opinion.
Right down the line. Happy to, so from my perspective, I think a survey is confusing because I think the survey, to Dave's point, invites all sorts of things that might be on a water tower. And also I think because the question before us is, does the city use city funds to co-brand with the school? That's a pretty nuanced question. It's not just a, hey, which logo do you like? That's not really the question. The question is whether we use city funds to co-brand with the school. And I say co-brand because the other side of the water tower is going to say City of Forest Lake. It's just the side that is closest to campus that is the question, right? For that reason, I don't think a survey is necessary. I agree with Councilmember Munson that it's awkward to have the City of Forest Lake and then the Rangers down the side. Because that tower is already branded to the Rangers, and if we're just updating the tower, I don't think we need to make a new policy decision here. I think we continue with the updated Rangers logo on that side. And also, I appreciate the fact that staff brought up that land, when that tower was built, as I understand it, was donated by the school district. Is that right?
What we brought up was the land swap, the land for the roundabout that they contributed.
Oh, got it, okay. And whether it's land swap for that, or we just have this partnership of working together, the parties that, the tax-paying entities are, everybody that's within the City of Forest Lake is also a, Forest Lake school district taxpayer, so it's the same tax base. And for that reason, I support just the updated Ranger logo. No survey needed. Councilmember Munson or Councilmember Valento? Or I'm sorry, Councilmember Husnick or Councilmember Valento?
Either way, go ahead if you have an opinion, and go ahead.
I think a survey would be fun. I mean, I'm just gonna stick with that point because I was the one who brought it up. Because I guess my thought was to do not like an open-ended question, but like out of these three, which one would you pick? But if we don't do a survey, I'm fine with that. And I would probably pick to keep the Ranger on there as well, just because that's what we have now.
I would agree. I don't think we need a survey. I think what's been proposed and looked at would work. So they would get their advertising, they'd get their branding, and I don't think we need to spend any more money on it and that kind of thing, so.
All right. Our next item this evening is discussion of the 97 reconstruction, I believe. And Ryan?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm just here tonight to give a verbal update on the Highway 97 project design that MnDOT's working on. So MnDOT previously submitted some concepts to the city, and we've talked to you guys about those, and it really didn't address any of the safety concerns that we've heard locally and from public safety and who we all have in this room tonight. So some of those things that we weren't in favor of was they were still, looking at a 55-mile-an-hour designed road, but then providing pedestrian crossings, or they were referring to them as refuge medians. So basically, you would have a pedestrian that could potentially still be standing in the middle of Highway 97 with two semis coming each direction. We're like, there's no way we're going to allow this or support this unless you guys come up with something that would potentially reduce the speed on Highway 97 or address all the other safety items that we outlined in some comments back to MnDOT. So that being said, our last conference call with MnDOT and their designers is they've gotten preliminary approval to look at Highway 97 as a curb and gutter option, which will constrict the footprint of the project, but also look at potentially having a 40-mile-an-hour designed roadway through that corridor. Also scoping and looking at further roundabout at the intersection of Fenway and Highway 97. So that obviously addresses the speed concerns that we've had. The median refuge areas that were outlined earlier. With the curb and gutter, the project will be able to narrow itself up through the wetland area. And I think that's another area where they're running into issues with the DNR approval, is that's one of our most protective bodies of water in the region, just the level of those wetlands. And they've been impacted here multiple times with the I-35 project and then the Hornsby work that's gone on. So I think there's some environmental pressure on the project to try to reduce its footprint too. But overall, I think that then comes back very well with all the safety requirements that we were trying to work with them in partnership on, that will have this road obviously for 50 years, the way it's coming in. The only negative with all this that's going on and the environmental concerns is there's potentially at this point of the project, it could be delayed to a 25-year project just because the added expense, the curb and gutter. But They're still trying to program it into 24. Most likely, they're still looking at how do you get pedestrians from Everton to that divergent diamond. For sure, we know we're still going to be able to fit the pedestrian pathway on the south side of Highway 97 from Everton to Fenway to the Hardwick Creek Trail. So we'll have a nice connection to the Hardwick Creek Trail for all the Forest Lake neighborhoods that are south of their Summerfield additions and stuff. But I think this achieves everything that we've been asking and requesting of MnDOT to incorporate into their project. Obviously, when you get some things that you guys want, there's some things that we'll have to deal with. You know, might not be that last connection with this project from Everton to the divergent diamond and the pedestrian improvements, and potentially there's 1 year out and with construction. So that's why I just wanted to be here tonight to give you guys a verbal update on where MnDOT's at and some of the pursuits that they're moving forward with. You know, if they really are able to implement a 40-mile-an-hour design road through here, I think that achieves everything that we've heard through the comp plan, safety outreach, through other outreach that we've done on other projects. So with that, obviously MnDOT's going to be coming in person sometime between now and I don't know exactly when. They're kind of still locked down a little bit, and the way things are going, it might be a online thing that we engage with them. But even when every time that we speak and discuss and plan with MnDOT, everything's remote with them still at this point.
And my next question is, what is the next action point for council? And it sounds like it's still a bit to be
I
determined.
think
on
MnDOT's
timing.
really struggling through the environmental side of things on this project, on the west end of the project, and they're having to put more detail and effort into how they're going to make this footprint work. That's going to get permitted. With the curb and gutter, now it's going to allow them obviously to channelize the stormwater to a direct point of discharge that'll be a constructed BMP. Best management practice could be a sediment basin, pond, or whatever, because it can't directly discharge into those wetlands, even the way it is today, how we just have it run off the road, off the shoulders, and into the wetlands. The DNR watershed are not going to allow that.
And the fact pattern of it moving maybe from a 2024 project to a 2025 project, is that because of the timeline for planning or budget or both?
Additional costs of the project that would be consumed with all the concrete work. They already have a very tight 24 fiscal budget, so that's just something they mentioned. Maybe they do it in phases too. We don't know. We're far from that, where they're at. There's also a lot of regionally planned construction in 24. So, you know, we got Highway 8 we're talking about, all the way from basically a Highway 61 there, all the way up to Carmel Avenue in Chisago City. And this is year 24 is also when Washington County's coming in to do Everton Avenue, you know, from Menards there to the south.
So for that reason, would we prefer a 25? I mean, or is it more of a sooner, is it, we don't have a preference?
I don't have a preference at this time. It's just, you're gonna have to deal with it at one point or another. The faster we get it done now. Oh, what if we had 1 year of development built out, you know, down there? That's just that many more cars that we're trying to push through there, if the longer we wait on a project too, so. Double-edged sword.
Any other questions for Ryan? Great, that ends our discussion portion of the agenda. Let's do staff updates next. Let's start with Patrick. We'll go around the dais this way and then we'll come back around. So
I was
Patrick
just
and
going to
then
remind, and I
Donovan.
think I already did, the special meeting and budget on the 30th. It's scheduled to start at 6 o'clock, if that's not inconvenient for anyone.
Excellent, thank you.
What time is it going to start?
6 o'clock,
Okay,
if that's
6,
not
okay,
inconvenient.
yeah.
Any questions for Patrick tonight? Donovan will come up the dais and then we'll come back around.
We still have, you know, pretty good agendas with the Planning Commission, a rather full one on this coming Wednesday, some variances and that sort of thing. Also, staff is trying to pull together a special meeting regarding development standards for September 13th. That would, you know, hopefully be prior to the regular Planning Commission, City Council meeting. And what we're experiencing is kind of a tension between our existing standards, which we know we're going to change for zoning to allow a greater density of residential zoning with single family attached in our MXR1, basically, which is our kind of go-to low to medium density residential district. And what we received with one concept plan and other plans we received just for informal conversations with developers, they're looking for much narrower lots than city currently allows. And I think it'd be good to have a joint discussion with both planning commission and city council to kind of take the temperature of the bodies on what they'd like to, what they see, and what is really the community standard. What does Forest Lake look like in its neighborhoods that are emerging? So we're working on that, and we'll get you final dates, next couple of weeks to, confirm that.
And right now you're looking at September 13th?
13th, yeah.
Just coordinate with Dan on EDA. I know we've got an EDA meeting tonight that was canceled, and so just make sure we're coordinated on how that fits together.
Certainly. That's it for me. I'm happy
Questions
to
for
take any
Donovan?
questions.
All right. Amanda,
Nothing for council, but I'm open to questions.
any questions for Amanda? Dan?
Just two quick updates. We're still collecting feedback on the downtown plan on the website. I just checked it, and there's still a lot of feedback coming in, which is great. And then I met last week with Bruce, and we started doing the business meetings with the businesses for the downtown plan. So we started that process of going out to he's setting up meetings with businesses and soliciting one-on-one feedback from them on the downtown plan and asking what they're looking for in the plan and some of, issues that they see in our downtown area right now. So that is ongoing. I know there's a couple of additional meetings scheduled in the near future here as well. So feedback is coming in, and that's still on track for the September downtown planning meeting. Will be a fairly robust meeting with, I believe, they're going to start to formulate that next step in the plan at the September downtown committee meeting.
Perfect.
And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dan? Karen, and then we'll jump over to Ryan and kind of close out this side of the dais.
Council members, I had the DNR contact me this morning. They wanted to set up a public meeting. They have to have a public meeting by statute. They're talking about Clear Lake and some proposed changes to the fishing regulations. So their meeting will be held here up in the community room on Tuesday, September 28th from, I believe, 5 to 7 p.m. And if there's any changes, I'll let you know on that.
Can you reach out to Mr. Ramseth, who I believe is the Clear Lake Association president? He provided some previous feedback recently and was a presenter at our last council meeting, just to make sure that's on their radar. Anything else for Karen?
That should be it
All right,
for now.
perfect. Ryan, Dave, we'll go to the chiefs at the end.
Mayor, City Council, just updates on the 2021 local street improvement project. All the work's basically been finished other than Fifth Avenue. We plan on placing curb and gutter Wednesday. So then we'll let that cure out through the weekend and hopefully back the following week to do the base course pavement.
And that's on Fifth Avenue?
Yep.
Perfect.
And then depending how fast the contractor gets his restoration completed along the pathway, which we've completed all the pathway and ped crossings on 210th and Goodview. Then we'll bring in the milling machine and do the milling. School projects pretty much got their heavy trucking all completed. So that could potentially be milling this week or next week, hopefully for sure. And then that would be followed with the final workhorse. That would be resurfacing of 210th and Goodview. Let it sit a couple days, just let it set up, and then we would come in with the final restriping of that roadway. So, and then I guess one more update. This week is the utility pre-construction meeting for Forest Hills Preserve, which is the 35 home subdivision off of North Shore there. So we'll be starting sanitary sewer, storm sewer into August or early September, and then road construction to follow. And there'll probably be house permits being pulled before winter to start up construction up there.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You mentioned highway, I know we had previously talked, I think there was an email exchange about an opportunity for county, was it county commissioners were looking for time with us? Chisago County engineer was looking for time with us. We just schedule that for whatever the update that they wanted to provide.
Quick update on that. Chisago County is leading that project, so when you do hear that, that's not to be confused with, they are literally leading that project. Level 1 concept has been submitted to MnDOT for review, so obviously there's not a lot of impact locally to Forest Lake, because nothing's really going to change in this area other than potentially if the project is built as submitted, it would have a trail connection to the Hard Creek Trail, which is the Swedish Immigrant Trail, which would bring that all the way up to Viking Boulevard, I think that's Highway 23 up there in Chisago, and then would head just a little off 8 and then it'll loop into the local system that's already built with one more segment in between. So they are planning for a 24 construction. I know they've got a lot of momentum within the bonding bill and working with the legislation. They got a lot of other solicitations out there for additional funds. But there will be a pretty big impact through the city of Wyoming with a lot of closures and stuff like that. Same with Chisago City, but overall it'll be a nice improvement and certainly will move traffic through there much easier and safer.
Any other questions for Ryan? All right, Dave and then Chief Newman.
Mayor and council, just want to take some time to thank the residents and property owners for turning off the irrigation systems. As the word got out by the end of last week, we got under $1.5 million, so it only took a little over a week and a half, and I think our Friday total was 1.45 million. So
Perfect.
The word got out and got really low this weekend with the rain. So just to add that, we got 2 inches of rain, but we need another 5 to 6 even to start thinking about getting out of the drought. So just because we have rain doesn't mean we're done with the irrigation ban. So I will definitely keep everyone in a loop if it looks like we'll be getting out of it to get rid of that ordinance. But for right now, we're still on.
At least the word got around a little bit. I was concerned about that, The flashing sign had to have helped that was on Broadway there,
Yeah, we've been moving that around to every development, and every day we have 2 signs that we just bounced around all week long, so.
Apparently it worked, so it's
Yep.
good.
Excellent. Any questions for Dave? All right, Chief Newman,
Mayor and council, I have no updates today.
Chief Peterson.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, last Tuesday, we visited 26 neighborhood block parties at the night-to-night events held throughout the city. Forest Lake police officers had the opportunity to meet with hundreds of community members, which was great, and it was a very successful event. And other than that, I have no further updates unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Chief? All right, let's bring it back to council. We'll start with Councilmember Munson.
Just a quick update. I attended the Planning Commission meeting on the 28th and had a good discussion around Castlewood, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in future. And Administrator Casey did a nice job. So.
Excellent, good. Councilmember Husnick.
I also attended a couple of the block parties that Chief Peterson just talked about. I went to the one on the lake at the park there and made the loop around there and talked to several different people. And then I also went to the one that was at Legion. We had to get there late because we had to finish up some things at the store there, but we made it 2 of them anyways, so that was a start. Also, this past Wednesday, the Rotary Club invited me over there for lunch, and Ryan was there. He was installed as a new member there, so they just wanted to talk about priorities and that kind of thing, and budget priorities, which was a little bit premature because we're just not there. We're just getting into this thing, but I did say that, that as far as my perspective was the fact that we need to get our union contracts straightened out. I'll kind of go from there. Basically, the other thing I said was there's never enough money for roads. And then when we talked about parks, slopes, and trail, that's going to be a bigger discussion. And Ryan was able to talk about all the things that are going on with the trails. So that was a big help there. So, and then I attended I tried to attend the Forest Lake school board meeting the other evening, last Thursday, and they were talking to a packed house. you could hardly get in the door, and their listening session would start at 6 PM. I think, I never did get completely in there where I could actually hear what was going on, but it was this critical race theory thing, so there was passionate discussion on both sides of the issue, so draw your own conclusions, go from there, and otherwise, the regular agenda was, pay the bills and membership and that kind of thing, and they had to go into closed session also because they're dealing with a whole bunch of contracts right now too, so their meeting was over by 8 o'clock, so that's all I have for now, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Valento.
No updates from me.
All right. Our EDA meeting this evening was canceled, and so I also don't have any updates. And that being the end of our planned agenda for this evening, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
You know what? We had a good discussion.
Well, man, isn't it, if the motion fails, that's an